Are you listening? Damn.
Hey guys, I'm Courtney.
And I'm Josh.
And welcome to the Infinite Balance Podcast.
We'll navigate parenting, relationships, health, fitness, and so much more.
So grab a drink, pull up a chair, and let's hang out.
Welcome back.
Hello.
Hi. I forgot I'm supposed to back up from the microphone a little bit.
Yeah, thank you.
So, how have you guys been? How do you feel? How are you?
We've been asking our son a lot of those questions lately. That's why Josh is in that mode.
No, I was just channeling the inner Delilah again. Or maybe we should call up Delilah one day. I don't care if she's old, retired, dead, whatever. We should call her up and say hi.
No.
And talk to her like this.
She might not take our call if we talk like her.
I'll give her one of these.
So loud.
So we figured that this week's episode, we would be talking about communication.
Communication.
And that covers a lot of different things. That covers not only relationships, that covers your relationship with your kids, your relationship with those around you in general, your work, your life, your whatever, everyday people that you meet. And, those you might encounter like close family or whatever. I know there was a couple instances recently with, that I had to learn some lessons with communication and things like that, because I'm not always the best with it in terms of those who are close to me. I seem to be very much able to regulate my temper and stuff like that with people that I just meet. And, I tend to be a lot more patient. But when people that I expect to know me and people that I expect a certain level of, I don't know, behavior from, I want to say, for lack of a better term, or whatever, certain level of respect, maybe, I don't know. I tend to get very frustrated with them, and I tend to not express my feelings in the best ways all the time. So, that often just immediately leads to anger and frustration and, all the bad stuff that doesn't really come across the right way. And it usually ends up yielding more negative results than positive. So, that's relatable to what we've been going through a lot lately. Me and Courtney have had to make sure our communication has been on the up and up, especially with the craziness of our schedules recently and adjusting to our new lifestyles. I think we've been doing a pretty good job. We've been striking a pretty good balance of everything. And, it comes down to that for maintaining a real strong relationship, and it's not just in terms of us, it's also in terms of those that we know. And like I said, our kids learn by example through us, and the things that we do or the things that we say to them, kind of become who they are after a while. And if we don't adjust how we communicate, we can't really expect them to communicate any better. So we really become like the model for that sort of stuff with them. And if they're ever going to be active members of society, and, I don't want to say good people or good members of society or whatever, but if they're ever going to be, active contributors to a better world, I think that's the best way I can possibly put it, then we need to teach them starting now. And it can start from day one, from the day that they begin learning language, from the day that they begin reciprocating like things that we do and, imitating us and things like that, because those are really the times when things start getting embedded in who they are, and we've noticed that a lot with our kids lately. So we've been really trying to hone that in and, help them express themselves better. We've been trying to express ourselves better to them, to our in-laws, to each other. So this is just, about some things that we've been putting into practice lately to try to get a better hold on, how we communicate in general and how we use that to grow ourselves and to try to help us understand the things that are going on around us a little bit better, to be more, what's the word I'm thinking of? Accepting or taking things in.
Open?
To be more receptive to the things that are going on around us, and to be able to kind of put our energy out there in a more positive way.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the past couple of weeks, we both have really had our eyes opened as to communication that we both need to improve on. I know one of the things I struggle with communication wise is that I don't always put things out there. I like to keep things in, partially because it's a control thing of controlling the situation. And it's also, sometimes I feel like to keep the peace where it's not necessarily the best option.
Mm-hmm.
That, sometimes I have to take a step back, let people communicate between themselves. And sometimes I have to say something that isn't going to always go over well, but that's part of having a good relationship with anybody, is being able to say the things that need to be said.
Regardless of how other people feel. Like, it's one thing to respect others, feelings and things like that.
Yeah, you don't want to say something that
Yeah, you don't want to say something that's going to bug somebody out, but sometimes that might also be what that person needs in some cases. And you really know that if you're in tune with who that other person is. But I mean that more in the light of, for yourself, it's better to be able to express yourself 100% and let it go rather than letting it build up. And I don't just mean in a upset way. I mean in also a happy way.
Well, and I was just going to say, there's also, just backtracking to saying how you feel to people without crushing their soul.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times where sometimes we do say stuff and it hurts someone's feelings. And that sometimes, listen, you're never going to not hurt anybody's feelings. There's always going to be someone whose feelings get hurt.
Right.
But one of the things that I've learned with communication is that it's not always what you say, it's how you say it. And I know I'm guilty of this, where I will say something and not even realize the way it comes out. And so that's part of my communication journey that I'm working on, is kind of trying to take a step back and reflect before I just spit out whatever it is. Or if I've already spit it out, reflecting and being like, okay, well, maybe I got an attitude back because I said it with attitude. Let me think about that. And it's not that I then can't say what I feel. It's just being aware of others so that I'm not isolating myself, because that is one thing with, with what you say, you can isolate yourself if you only think about you.
Yeah. I said something like this. I don't think I released the episode yet, but I said something like this the other day when I recorded my podcast too. That becomes a process of building walls. That becomes one of the bricks that you put in that wall, is when you restrict yourself from expressing yourself in any way, but let alone letting your feelings be known and just holding them back for fear of upsetting somebody or not saying something the right way 100%. That kind of builds the wall around you and kind of helps to shut you in.
Yeah, but on the opposite side of that, I think you also build walls when you don't think about others. There's got to be that balance of saying what you feel and letting there be the emotion, but also not letting every time you say something, kind of picking and choosing, okay, this deserves my emotion, and this is going to hurt their feelings the way I say it. I don't care. Where other times it's all right, is this really worth it? Because having those times where it's not really worth it, but saying it anyway, that's going to build a wall of isolation. That's what I was...
Yeah, no, maybe I'm not saying it 100% the right way, but that's also like a part of it. That's like the opposite side of it is
Yeah.
because you're still segregating yourself from what's going on in a way, you know? So
Yeah, because you're making it more like self.
yeah. So, and that's usually the angle that I take with it because, you know, especially like in our living situation now, you know, there might be things where I don't feel like I have the right to say something or I don't have the right to stand up for how I feel. And, you know, with certain things, I just let it blow over and I kind of just ignore it. And then it builds up and then it becomes like, no, now I'm angry, you know? And in that moment, I always feel like, well, they need to know how angry I am. When I take a look back, and it's a very painful thing for me, and I use painful because it's like it's like a neuroplasticity type pain. Like it's literally my mind trying to re-bridge a connection that was long burnt, long ago, you know? And it becomes this whole process where I have to reteach myself, like, it's not their fault that I held it in this whole time. Maybe if I had said something in the better way first thing, it wouldn't have become such a huge situation. And that's part of the process that I'm learning now. You know, is not to expect that people know how I feel, you know, and not to expect that people know what to expect from me all the time. And you know, it becomes a very uncomfortable situation. It becomes very distracting and very it's almost like an ego check, you know, like it's a very hard ego check when you have to stop yourself from blaming somebody else for anything, let alone how you are acting. And it comes down to what Tony Robbins once said, like, if you're going to blame them for the bad stuff, blame them for the good stuff too. And that's a big part of it, is it can't be one or the other, you know? And I think that's important to remember with communication, because like you were saying, like, if you do either of those extremes, you're building this wall around yourself that cuts other people off from getting to know you better and from you getting to learn how to communicate with them better.
And I think we're both opposite ends of the spectrum with that, where you hold things in until you explode.
Mm-hmm.
Where not that I freely let things go, but I say things, but I don't put the emotion behind them.
Mm-hmm.
I try to like protect people's feelings, which that in its own way is a wall, because it's that control. It's like I'm letting you in, but I'm not really letting you in. It's like I'm building a glass wall. I'm letting you see it, but you don't actually know
that it's there.
Yeah.
And I feel like the interesting part with us is that even though it's different, like we said, it's the different ends of the spectrum, but it comes from the same source. Because, like, I'll say something if I feel I'm warranted to be able to say it. But, like, in situations like, if I was living at somebody's house and they were helping me out, I wasn't paying rent, whatever, like, first and foremost, I always try to help however I can. If I'm unable to pay for it, I try to help getting groceries or doing something, however I can help, you know, doing work around the house, anything. And so under those situations, like, if that person's going against something I believe, or I feel like I need to speak up about something, I won't always do it because I feel like I owe it to them not to. And I feel like, you know, at times I also become afraid of my own emotions. And that's a part of my communication problem, is that I'm not afraid of, you know, me feeling them or whatever. I'm afraid of, you know, because I've been so angry where people get scared and people don't know how to react to me, you know? And I feel like that's a big part of it, is like I'm trying to protect them from that at the same time as being respectful. But it all comes out in this wrong cluster F, for lack of a better term. So, you know, it's been how I navigated my entire life, because I've always been taught that, like, you know, violence is bad, so no fighting and, you know, no screaming, no yelling, stuff like that. But, like, you know, my emotions and my anger get so strong that, like, that's the only way I can express myself sometimes. And especially after holding it back for so long, you know? So it's just a conundrum that I've grown up with and am now facing as I'm 36 years old. regardless of how under control I thought I had, that was kind of the problem. Is it's under control sometimes for me meant it was completely ignored or like just bottled up and put to the side. But I just think it's interesting that it comes from the same source in a way of trying to protect the other person that I'm having the communication issue with, But yeah, I agree. I think we're both from the opposite ends, but the same source,
Mm-hmm.
And, not that we have an extremely long way to go, but,
And I think the important thing to remember is any relationship communication is always going to be something that needs work. You can have the best communication in the world, but there's always going to have to be progress.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's not stationary. It's just always a work in progress, and you just always have to, grow with each other, because in anything, you constantly are growing as a relationship. You're constantly growing as individuals. You're constantly growing. And so with that, everything has to grow with it, not just yourselves, but your actions, your communication, just kind of everything. I know that's one of the things that we've been really working on too, is growing with each other. Not just like, okay, you're gonna grow, all right, now I caught up, and now I'm gonna grow, and then okay, now you catch up.
Yeah, because that was our pattern for a while.
Yeah,
we were doing that for a while.
Yeah, and so it's just very much like getting on the same page, and you're not always going to be neck and neck, and that's fine. You shouldn't be, but as long as you keep that communication growing with you and moving forward with you, even if you're not on the same page with communication, as long as you're both growing and moving forward with it instead of backwards, that's great. That's progress.
Yeah, and it's even in some cases it's something so small as like I think it was last night I was getting angry because I thought I had more time to what?
2 nights ago, yeah.
So it was 2 nights ago that I was getting angry, and I thought I had more time to do something business wise. I forgot what it was, but and you had said like put your laptop away or whatever, and like let's enjoy a movie or whatever. And
let's just watch this.
Yeah, and I think the show or movie was my idea, so like
you had to put it on.
Yeah, and like I was in the mode of like, oh, I'll just do this real quick, and like I said in the last episode that we did, like I have a time concept issue. Like I don't conceptualize time that well, and it's a trait that I've always had a struggle with. So like something that I think is going to take me 5 minutes, oftentimes will either take me 10, 15, sometimes an hour, and so I was just thinking that this was going to be a quick 5-minute thing. And then when she said that, like I got angry, and I didn't get angry at her. So I wanted her to know that. And it was almost comical when I think back to it now, because I was like kind of crossing my arms like a brat and like kind of just, and like I sat back, and like Courtney like laid her head on me. We were watching the movie, and I was like, it was an awkward way to put it, but it was the only way that I could do it at the time, so that I could let her know that I was not upset with her. I literally just said, I'm not mad at you. I'm mad that I didn't have the time I thought I had, and like, just because I wanted to open up and tell her that, because I'm not good at that. That's a small thing that I would hold back, and then it eventually would become an issue somehow, So I think that's important to remember too. Like even those small moments will help you build better communication regardless of who it's with.
Yeah, and I could tell it was something that you felt awkward even saying, just because it is awkward when you're not used to it. And I started and I adjusted while saying it. I was like, it's fine. Like, if you want to do it, you can. Because that's my, like, make everything good, make everyone happy type feel and vibe that I usually do. And I stopped, and I was like, it's just, we wanted to watch this together. Like, kind of letting him know it's okay, but this is why I said something. Instead of just being the, like, no, go do it. It's fine. You can do it if you want.
And then with how I am, I just reacted by saying no. Yeah. Because that was my way of like I was still in a bad mood, and I don't like saying a lot of things when I'm in a bad mood because I'll say the wrong things. And so that was my way of just being like, please just let's not talk about this anymore. Like,
Yeah.
not to cut it off, but like I knew I was in a bad mood. So bringing it out any further was just going to annoy me further.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to take that out on her or anything. So I just said, no, you're right. It's absolutely right. I said this the exact thing the other day. And, it's just what it is,
And I think one of the things that with communication is listening that we haven't really talked about. That's the other side of communication.
Mm-hmm.
And I say this a lot with my volleyball players because being on the court, you need to communicate. Like you have to be okay with opening your mouth and telling people like, no, it's mine, or I've got this, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I say it all the time. You can be best friends, and you can love each other, but be mean. And I'm like, and not in the negative way where you're like, oh, get out of my way, but being like, I got it, move.
Mm-hmm.
On the court, that's fine. That's good communication. It's quick, it's efficient. But the other side of that I also tell them is to listen.
Yeah.
If I'm just talking at you and you're not getting anything, that's blocking that communication. And so I think it's important to, one, know the person you're communicating with, but two, listening to their cues. Josh saying, no, I said it the other night, it's fine. I was like, all right, I knew, I'm listening to his cues. I'm not going to keep bringing it up. I'm not going to be like, no, really, go ahead, because that's going to end not well. And what was nice was
Courtney just went on an allergy sneezing spree, so she's going to sound a little different.
Sorry, guys. But it was really nice because then the next day we were able to have, I'm like so aware of it now.
Thank you for calling. How may I take your order?
Anyway, we were able to have a calm conversation about it. So we were able to not ignore it when it happened, but we were able to like, okay, it is what it is. Now let's move on. And then the next day revisit it and have that bigger communication. Mm-hmm. And, like Josh said, kind of what he just said now, like I knew I was in a bad mood. I didn't want to take it out on you. And now I'm like also really out of breath. And, just kind of summed up what he said before. And I was able to say to him, like, it's fine. If it was something you wanted to work on, it, like, that's fine. But it's the asking questions, mm-hmm. which I don't even think in the moment Josh was even aware of that. But it was one of those things where it was like we put on a show that we have been watching. I think it's Justice League. And so I'm like, I don't know the backstory to that stuff the way Josh does. So I feel like I have to watch every single second of it. Mm-hmm. And so, like, that's why I wanted to communicate with him. I don't mind you doing that stuff because you don't have as much time as you think. But it's the asking me questions when we're trying to watch it. Like, mm-hmm. let me watch it. Pause it, then ask me the questions. And I do the same thing when I'm bugging you when we're watching TV. If I have a lot of questions, I try to put it on pause because I know that's how I operate. I can't mm-hmm. focus on both things. But it was a good conversation of that I think opened both our eyes of like both sides of it.
Yeah. And, it's important to include that like it's also in regards to your kids too. Mm-hmm. Like the relationship stuff that we've been talking about this whole episode, we can pretty much relate to any adult that we interact with or any, friends, family, coworkers. It's about the open, respectful lines of communication, but it's also about listening and it's about being respectful for who each other are and picking up on cues and kind of just integrating all of this into your conversation, being truthful, but being honest and respectful at the same time. And it's something that a lot of us need to work on our balance with, but it's definitely doable regardless of the type of person that you are. Mm-hmm. I don't care how hard-headed you can be because I come from a background of anger and rage. I can hone it in, so can you. You know, and Courtney comes from, I don't want to say a repressed background, but very, you know, like,
No, I mean, because there was definitely anger and rage, but it was not.
acceptable to be shown.
No, it was just in the right. It was one of those like controlled, but not by anybody. It was like just like a self control of like, because I did grow up and like I did have anger issues and like we took care of that. Like I saw a therapist for it and that was very helpful. But it was that fine line of having your emotions while still being respectful. And I think that was maybe harder for me to balance that line than I probably realized until I got older. And it was like, okay, well, I should probably be saying how I feel, but I'm afraid that they're going to find it disrespectful. So I'm just going to keep the peace.
Well, I meant repressed as in like you were, and I was brought up this way too, but my family was less like strict about it. Was like, you know, be respectful of your elders. You do not talk back, you know, like stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I have that too, but like I'm more of the type of person where like, no, respect needs to be a two-way street, you know? So if I feel like disrespect comes in, then it's another issue. But that's what I meant by, you know, you were brought up in a much more religious background, like very
Irish Roman Catholic.
Very like controlled respect. I want to say, you know.
There was no acceptance for talking back.
So like yours is coming out of the shell and being respectful with your anger and feelings and things like that, and where mine is honing them down to be effective communication, you know.
But yeah, well, kids feel it too.
And especially, you know, you'll start noticing that your kids will model the behavior that you're putting forth, whether you realize you're doing it or not. If you notice that there's something that your kids are doing, like I noticed it with Michael. When Michael started expressing his rage and his anger and his anxieties, you know, I started taking a look back and being like, well, where is he learning that from? You know, because he was very socially awkward when he was young, and he's you know, he's getting out of all that stuff. But I was wondering, like, you don't really have a whole lot of people that you're exposed to that model this behavior for you. So where is this coming from? Like, is it genetics for whoever knows, or is it like, are you seeing this? And then I started taking inventory of how I'm acting with him. And I started doing things where, like, if we do raise our voice, like within a certain amount of time, like 10, 15 minutes, we'll cool down. You know, I'll if I sent him to his room or something, I'll go back upstairs and I'll talk him through it and I'll explain what was going on. And, you know, it's also helped me kind of therapeutically to look at it that way, especially with somebody like Philip, too. This is not all on Michael. This is with Philip.
He's just the most recent example in our minds.
Because he's, you know, much more of a mirror of our emotions. Philip is a kid who's very independent and doesn't care.
Bounces off of him, but like a little bit absorbs.
And he'll just express how he thinks is whatever. Like
he'll get in trouble, and then like an hour after, maybe even longer, he'll just be like, "I didn't like that." And you're like, "You didn't like what didn't you like?" And he's like, "I don't like getting in trouble. I don't like you yell at me." And then he talks through it. So like Philip has no problem telling us how he feels. It just takes him a little bit, where Michael doesn't.
So, you know, it's very it's actually kind of freeing to see that kind of acknowledgement that you need to show more restraint, you know, because in that way you kind of have to force yourself to express how you feel and yet still know that they're watching. They're paying attention. So you have to be a little bit more composed and explain how you feel and be more communicative.
Yeah, and I notice like I'm doing that a lot more too. Like I will tell the boys, like, when they're really testing, I will tell them, like, Mommy is really trying to not get mad right now, but you're not listening, and that makes Mommy sad, and Mommy's gonna start getting mad, and I don't want to get mad because you don't like, and trying to kind of almost break it down for them so that if they don't then stop and they don't start listening, if they continue just like hitting each other and throwing things and just not listening, then when I'm like, okay, go to your room, it's almost easier to then explain it to them, because it was like I gave you that warning, that emotional warning of like, that it's, listen, well, we just got to stop now. This is your choice. And it's good, because I've noticed with Michael doing that, when I then, like, if he gets sent to his room, when then after he gets sent to his room, when I go to talk to him to kind of explain, you know, this is why you went to your room, what do you think happened, he has a better understanding. It's not as much of like, I don't know. He's like, because you told us to stop and we wouldn't. And I'm like, yes, how do you think mommy felt? Mommy felt sad. Like and it's not just like repeat, he gets it. Like you can see it, like he's processing, like, oh yeah, maybe I should have been more aware. So it's having that open communication in any situation is, and I do it when I'm happy too. I'll say to them, like, mommy's really happy that you guys are playing nicely together, and that, you know, let's keep that up. And then, well, maybe we'll get something, like, kind of giving that to the reward also is like, hey, you got this reward. Why'd you get this reward? And kind of working through emotions that way with them.
Positive reinforcement. All of our behavior training
is really being tested.
Yeah, and you know, giving them the heads up and stuff like that, and really communicating with them, you know, how we're feeling works. You know, I'll say a good 64% of the time.
Yeah,
to be
it's not-
100% honest, but it's a process. It used to work 10% of the time. And, you know, we've gotten it up to the level where we're at, and it's a long, arduous process, but it's worth it. And it's going to be worth it for them in the long run to fully understand this. And, you know, like I've said it before, way back in a few episodes ago, that I think this is our awakening, and this is really our opportunity to become, to build a better society by teaching our kids how to be open, and no more restrictions except for that of respect and love and honesty. And I think it's very important and very freeing for them as well as for us to know that we're trying to help build a better future by designing our kids to this, where, you know, they are not going to feel restricted and not going to feel the anger issues and things like that we experience because of the restrictions that were put on us like that.
And I think, like, just think about a future where adults can openly communicate how they feel and it be just like accepted. Like, there's so many people now where they don't know how to express how they feel. Or when someone expresses how they feel, it's an attack on them when that's not what it is. And so I think that's also a huge thing for me, is that I want our children to be able to feel like they can express themselves, and that they can listen to someone express themselves and not feel like it's an attack on their persona, you know, that they like understand, like, okay, cool. That's good. Like, they can have open communication about anything. I don't want to start bringing this into deeper issues, but like that they can have a conversation about their religious beliefs or their political views or what sport team they like, you know, whatever it is. I really do want our children to not feel like they can't express themselves because of this, like they're being stunted from a generation that doesn't know how to express themselves.
And do it in a way that's respectful and loving.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, don't be like shouting it at someone.
You have world leaders right now who can't control their tempers and can't control, you know, responding to people. And I don't just mean Trump. He's not the only one. You know, if you're a fan, you know, hey, it is what it is. But, you know, I don't just mean Trump. There's other politicians who respond just as bad on social medias or do things that you can tell, like, wow, they've had a lot repressed, whether it's, you know, of a sexual nature or just inappropriate as a world leader in general. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on. There's corporations doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And I think this is the beginning stepping stone of the aforementioned awakening that I was talking about, where, you're going to start seeing employers being more respectful of their employees' needs. You're going to start seeing these world leaders being more respectful of the people's needs rather than the money in their pockets or, what they think is the best choice for, who they are or whatever, and I think that as long as we all kind of take hands in this and really put the effort forward, it's useful. If you have children out there, please just don't let it be a situation where it's like, oh, this is how I was raised and it worked, because no, it didn't, because you're still thinking about it. You're still experiencing things that, you don't know how to deal with,
Everyone's still shoving their own feelings down other people's throats. Like, no.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not something.
And that's that respect factor.
Yeah. And it's not something that's fair to put on a human that's brand new and brought into this world,
Yeah. We shouldn't expect our kids to know how to communicate if we don't show them the right way.
Yeah.
Give them the respect and communication that you want from them.
We have the ability to build a better world. We have the knowledge, the awareness, the mindfulness, and we can teach that to the next generation. And we can use that to build a positive change.
Just got deep.
Boom.
I was like, what?
I have a pre-recorded sound for that now. I told her I was going to do it.
You did it when we recorded the last episode.
I don't know who goes first.
You go first.
Damn, I had one. What's your most difficult moment to date with your communication? Like, what's a moment you really felt kind of like socked you upside the head, but you still handled it?
There's nothing that really like sticks out where it was like just the communication. There's not like one situation, but I know like there's been little situations that.
So what's the most profound one that sticks out?
I don't know. It's like it's a series of communicative control on my end that sticks out.
Close your eyes. What's the first one right now? Whatever you're thinking of.
Literally, there's nothing. There's not one.
You were thinking of one.
No, I wasn't. I was thinking of like, oh, it's been a series. There's not one moment that I can think of right now where communication, like, really, like, where I was like, damn, I should have done better with communicating.
Well, that's not what I was asking.
I thought that.
No, it's like a highly impact, like an issue that you had where, like, looking back on it, like, it was one of the hardest you may have faced, but you still handled it the best that you could have in that moment. Like, you're actually almost impressed with how you handled it because, I don't know, you were so angry and yet you were able to, like, restrict yourself from, beating them down with words or something like that.
I mean, it happens pretty regularly where I get real, like, I just want to yell at the kids, but I don't.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a victory for all of us.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of moments where I'm just like, and that's one of the communication things is where, like, I will stop and say to the kids, like, mommy's about to lose her mind. Mm-hmm. We need to stop. And they get it now. Mm-hmm. When I say mommy's going to lose her mind, trying to keep it together, guys. Mommy doesn't want to explode. And they like, all right, yeah, let's just like give her 5.
Yeah. I have sort of like an out of control thunder voice that I don't always have the ability to, like, I get so frustrated when people tell me I'm talking loud because I'm like, that is who I am. But literally, like, I've been in a house of like a house party almost type of situation, and really loud music, and like, you know, everybody's drinking or getting stoned or whatever. And, you know, like even somebody just had to ask a question to somebody across the room, just one simple word from me, and like the room stops, you know. And I don't intend to do that, but like I have to be mindful of that, because it's something where like if I've yelled before and everybody in the room has cried, and I don't want to be that person. I don't want to use that ability for something that negative. So I feel that on like an extra level, especially with the kids, because they're fragile little things. You know what I mean? Like you don't want to split them in half with your words, because then that's what they learn to do, you know? And, you know, even just the volume, like whether or not it's something happy or whatever, like I have to be mindful that I can, you know, immediate headaches and kind of scare people, because even if I'm excited or whatever, you know? So I feel that. I definitely do. That was much lower because I forgot I turned the volume down.
I'm laughing because I'm looking at you with like your hands in your lap, like your shoulders, like just like such a proud little kid waiting for your lightning sound to come, and then like hearing you make the sound, but like you're just smiling at me.
And it's like it's delayed, so like I'm touching the button now. It literally takes like
We gotta
a good
re-record
2
that.
seconds.
We gotta re-record that. Okay, so my question for you is, what is one thing from this past week that is something that you're looking forward to? Like something that we either planned or was talked about or we dreamed about. What's something from this past week that you're now like looking forward to?
Are you trying to get me to talk about Denise?
No. Well, no, because I was talking about going to the planetarium, like with Michael, which I don't know if you're going to do that, or I am. We've talked about the swing set, like that's getting done. There's a lot.
There's a lot coming. You know, I don't know if it's like fair to have to pick one, but there's a lot I'm excited about. You know, I've taken a lot of like mentality leaps this week, and I've taken a lot of steps in my own brain to help things work out a little bit better with our schedules, and, you know, just brainstorming a lot of stuff that's going on. So like, yeah, I'm excited about like the planetarium, the playground setup, stuff like that. Like I know I'll be more amped once like it's heat closer to happening.
Yeah, I know that playground I'm excited about.
Yeah, because that's not even going to happen until like the end of the week. So, you know, like I'm like, it's coming, but it's not here yet, you know. But, you know, I'm also very excited about some of the stuff that I haven't even talked to you about, I don't think. One or two of the things I have, like, you know, I'm going to start.
How rude.
I'm going to start doing things like, you know, I record like a lot of my podcast stuff on the go. So like I'm going to start editing those in like on the in between when I get the opportunity to, and try to get, you know, a couple of them lined up so that I have a good release schedule for them. I've made a vow to myself that I think it was last Thursday was the last day I leave a date on my calendar empty. And that's very important for somebody like me, because I don't use a calendar that well. Like I've just started using the Google calendars, you know?
Maybe you could explain that to people. Like you're not going to leave a date without something written under it.
So like I have a calendar that literally for almost an entire year now, I haven't even touched the thing. And it's like a 2-year calendar. And, you know, I've heard on every business venture coach thing that I've ever gone through, or business classes or whatever that I've ever gone through, that, you know, calendars are important. And for somebody from a background like mine, from ADD, ADHD, and OCD, because there's two sides to this. One, I get too confuzzled to follow a calendar. Like I get too distracted by something else, or something else I think will take priority. Or it goes back to the episode that we talked about last week too, about prioritizing your time. So, you know, I suck at it. So oftentimes, like whatever I write on the calendar doesn't come to fruition, because the only things that are 100% are like my paydays, you know? And the other side of that is if I see something on the calendar that I don't follow through with, I get stuck on it because of the OCD, because it's there. I should have done it. I needed to do it. And now I don't feel right, you know? So I've dedicated myself to facing both sides of that and coming up with, it doesn't matter what I write in there. It's a goal for the day and or something I accomplished in the day. If I didn't get to write anything that day, I'm going to look back on that day, say by the end of the day or the following day, and I'm going to write something in that spot because I'm trying to train myself step by step to use the damn thing. Mm-hmm. And I think once I kind of get a flow for it, it's going to be both motivational and directional. It's going to be like, okay, even if I didn't accomplish something on this day, here's what I did accomplish, whether I planned it or not.
Yeah.
And the things that I did plan on, like the goals that I set for myself that day, I can check them off, you know? And it's going to serve both purposes to kind of make me okay with the days that I don't get anything that I expected to done, but it's going to also help me plan and prioritize better.
Multifaceted.
Yeah. So just a lot with that and a lot of things that I'm planning on putting into place this week for my new schedule to be more active at home because I've been taking a lot of time to sleep and
which is needed.
Which is needed. And, you know, I'm not getting like a full 8 hours, but you know. You
wake up and you're a little slow getting going. Mm-hmm. Like you'll come up and like you'll kind of like say hi to the kids and like I could see you're still waking up, but then you're good.
Because I only get usually on average like 5 or 6 hours at best.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm used to getting 8 hours of sleep. So, I need to respectfully to myself get into a better operation where like I get up, whether I have coffee or whatever, get up and get going, you know, and not just enjoy my time with the kids, but like don't just sit there and stare at the TV or whatever, like enjoy my time. But also there's some things that I can do. There's that I can play with them. I can get active and, you know, I'm going to be a lot more efficient this week. And I've set some goals for myself that I'm quite excited to put into place.
I think with that too, it's even though your schedule is different, you have to almost look at it as though it's not. Like, I know for me, I wake up and it's like, all right, let's go. Like, let's be productive because like I've got to get things going. I've got to get rolling. And so I feel like even though, yes, you might be waking up at 4 or 5 o'clock at night, you can still have that same mentality of like, nope, let's go. It's the day. Let's get going.
Yeah.
That's just my little tidbit.
No, yeah. And I think the biggest challenge for me with that was, you know, like you said, I try to wake up by 4 unless like something happens and I don't go to bed till after 10, then like I need to get sleep, you know?
Yeah.
But I try to wake up at 4, and on the days when like you're at work, like I have to go to sleep at 9, wake up hopefully at 9. Usually it's by like 9:30, 10. I go to sleep for an hour, then I go and get Philip from school. Then the kids are up for an hour until it's nap time for both of them. Then I go to sleep for a couple more hours and then, you know, whatever. So just trying to maximize my awake time and still give time to my kids and you.
Fitting everything in.
Yeah. And the tricky part is waking up at 4, we put our kids to bed by 7, dinner time's at 5. So like
it's a rush time frame.
Yeah, it's a rush time frame, but there's a better way to do it so that it doesn't have to be rushed. And that includes like what you told me last week, like don't try to cram everything into the 3 days.
Yeah.
Prioritize what needs to get done on those 3 days.
Yeah.
You know. So it's a learning process, it's a curve, but like I said, this week I'm excited to start putting things into place to being more productive and helpful.
I think you're going to feel a lot better.
Yeah. And like with the stuff with the playground setup and stuff, that's going to make me feel a lot better because we've been waiting for that stuff for a while.
I literally yesterday was like, I wish it was up because it's so nice out. And they have this new thing where they want to play in the front yard, but like can't let them play in the front yard without someone there. And it's a lot harder to be with them. So I'm just excited for that to be up.
Yeah. Well, guys, this has been a longer episode than we expected. So I think we're only going to sit with the 2
One apiece, yeah.
lightning round questions. You know, I think it was a good conversation though about communication and
Yeah.
you know the tips that we use and you know our insights to it. So if you need any help with any of this, or you have some questions for us or suggestions for shows or whatever, you guys know the routine by now. All of our links are in the show notes. Get in touch, and we'll talk to you next time.
I will just throw in that my handle, I don't know why I was saying user.
Oh yeah, that's right.
My Instagram handle has changed.
I think I changed it in last week's show notes too.
Okay.
'Cause I noticed it when I posted it, and I think I changed it to your new link tree.
Anyway.
Yeah. Or not link tree, whatever.
Yeah. My new Instagram handle is now just at Courtney Bernstein VA.
Virtual assistant.
That was the rebrand. My page is still kind of undergoing the rebrand. There was applause there.
Can I do it?
Yeah.
Stop it.
That was that like staggered, like, do we want to applaud?
I forgot I switched it from press to hold.
So yeah, so that's the new venture. There's going to be a lot of changes on my page this week. But yeah, that's the big surprise, the big reveal is that I have decided to switch to virtual assistant, which I'm sure we'll talk about more in the next coming episodes as that path becomes more clear. But I wanted to just give you guys that heads up that there is a new Instagram handle.
It's still inclusive of everything that we used to do.
Yeah.
Or that Courtney used to do, but also including some new things. So
Yeah. So it's gonna be exciting.
Yeah.
So if you can't find me, it's because it's now Courtney Bernstein VA.
There you go.
Simplified it. Easy to remember.
There you go.
All right. See you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.